Hi everyone. I hope when you're viewing this, you are doing as fantastic as I'm trying to tell myself I am right now. My presentation is on the rapid improvements in emotion regulation that predict intensive treatment outcome for patients with bulimia nervosa and purging disorder by both Danielle E. McDonald and Catherine Troiter. I know the title sounds really long and confusing, but in my presentation, I do define exactly what they're talking about. Because at first I was confused as well. But, anyways. So, this is just my table of contents. I'll basically, I'm just going over what you would probably see in a normal psych presentation. I kind of just went off of the format that I normally do. So, I'll just be talking about the purpose and the hypotheses they had, the important concepts, the methods, so like the procedure and participants, the different measures they use, because they use quite a few, and the results, and of course, my thoughts and opinions at the end. So, my introduction, the purpose of the study, and the hypothesis. So, what was the purpose of this study? The purpose of this study was to examine whether rapid changes in emotion regulation predicts eating disorder treatment outcome beyond rapid and substantial behavior change. So basically, what I've got from the article was that they were trying to see how, the changes in emotion regulation. So basically, what they defined that as was like if someone had a purging disorder, like with the uses of certain behavioral treatment, would they completely stop after a certain amount of time receiving that treatment? And it would be in a fairly small amount of time. So the hypothesis that the researchers had was that the improvements in emotion regulation during the first 4 weeks of intensive CBT-based eating disorder treatment would predict behavioral and cognitive eating disorder outcomes at the post-treatment sessions. Important concepts. So basically, I'm going to describe to you guys what bulimia nervosa is, what exactly cognitive behavioral therapy is, even though we went over it in class, and what exactly they mean by rapid and substantial behavior change. So, bulimia nervosa is an eating disorder recognized by the DSM-5. An individual experiencing bulimia nervosa will feel out of control and will consume a large amount of food in a short period of time. During or after their binging episode, the person will typically feel guilty and ashamed and will engage in compensatory behaviors in order to avoid weight gain. So this is typically where, especially in this study, they will talk about purging disorders, which go hand in hand with bulimia. People will typically ingest laxatives in order to basically purge out the food, or they will induce themselves to vomit. So cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT is a short-term and commonly used form of psychotherapy and behavioral therapy that aims to find new ways to behave by changing or adapting new thought patterns. CBT works upon the fundamental principle, basically that what we think, what we feel, and how we behave are all closely connected, and all three of these factors have a decisive influence on our well-being. Rapid and substantial behavior change. So, basically, during the first 4 weeks of intensive treatment within the study, abstinence from all binge or purge, so basically vomit and laxative uses episodes, was considered a rapid and substantial behavior change, and they called it RSBC. So if I say RSBC, that's what I mean. I'm not just saying random things. But so basically, the abstinence, the total withholding from those actions, is what they call that. And because the majority of patients achieve significant changes during intensive treatment, this criteria for classification as a rapid responder is higher than that employed in outpatient rapid response research. So as a result, the abstinence of these behaviors distinguishes people who have made significant and rapid changes, as well as representing a clinically meaningful condition of functioning, meaning that they have not fully achieved, because obviously it never goes away, but they have achieved a substantial and a really, really high amount of progress within their treatment methods. So participants of this study were recruited via an intensive CBT-based eating disorder hospital program at the University Health Network in Toronto, Canada. The program assisted adults ages 17 plus, and 104 total participants were included in this study. Participants were eligible if pre-treatment symptoms met the diagnostic criteria for bulimia nervosa or other purging disorders within the past 3 months. The eligible participants had to complete at least 6 weeks of treatment prior to participating in the study. Procedures. So they didn't really have within the article, it didn't really discuss the intensive exact treatments they would do. I mean, you'll understand once I get more into it, but a lot of it is kind of similar to what we're doing in our self-management projects. Half of it was self-management of the participants on their own merit, and the other half was intensive CBT group therapy or outpatient therapy. So basically, assessments occurred prior to treatment and at the end of the week 4, because they did this in, I think, from 6 to 8 weeks, and at the end of week 4 and during post-treatment. Participants self-monitored, as I mentioned, their eating behaviors and symptoms on a daily basis as a part of routine clinical care. And they also, since they all derived from a hospital, they all received their regular hospital treatment as normal. And they all participated at least 40 hours a week, so a whole work week of CBT-based programs for at least 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how long they were in the program. For people with bulimia nervosa or purging disorder, the day hospital program consisted of roughly 40 hours in the hospital, as I mentioned, for 6 to 8 weeks. The majority of the programming consists of rigorous CBT-based group treatment and supported meals. So basically, they would choose their meals and what they would eat. And the patients didn't really have much. I mean, they had a say, but they also would be watched as they ate. Participants were encouraged to use the skills taught in therapy to assist them with behavior change. And the program placed a heavy emphasis on rapid normalization of eating and withdrawing from binge eating and purging habits. Patients were also taught how to apply these abilities to change body image-related attitudes and behaviors, control emotions, and improve interpersonal connections. So basically, kind of like how some of us are doing with our self-management projects, a lot of this was basically the participant themselves really kind of using what they learned in therapy or using the new skills in different treatments in order to adapt the behaviors upon themselves, not someone basically telling them what to do. Because as we learned with CBT, it's more of you changing your own thought patterns and basically telling yourself things in order, or even withholding negative thoughts in order to I don't know the word, completely withdraw from the negative emotions. So the measures. So they used 5 different measures within this study. The first one was the eating disorder examination, which was used to ascertain DSM-5 diagnoses and assess binge, vomit, and laxative episode frequencies, both before and after treatment. The second one was the eating disorder examination questionnaire. It's a 28-item self-report version of the eating disorder examination interview that uses 7-point Likert scale, raising from 1 to 6, assessing eating disorder psychopathology. The third one was daily self-monitoring of eating disorder behaviors. So participants were asked to self-report on weekly eating disorder behavior frequencies during the first 4 weeks of treatment. These self-reports were used as a predictor to indicate whether they believe participants would attain a positive post-treatment outcome. Difficulties in emotion regulation scale was the fourth one they used, which is basically a 36-item self-report, again, questionnaire that assesses various aspects of emotion regulation. Difficulties on a 5-point Likert scale, ranging from 1, almost never, to 5, almost always. And they were kind of asked, like, do I ever feel like purging? Do I feel anxious when I do this? And questions of that. And then the last one is the Beck Depression Inventory, which basically is a 21-item self-report measure that assesses severity of depression symptoms over the previous 2 weeks of treatment on a 4-point Likert scale. Results. So in all of the models, rapid improvements in access to emotion regulation strategies appeared as a significant predictor. Even after attempting to control the RSBC and baseline variables, individuals who improved their access to emotion regulation strategies during the first 4 weeks of treatment were more likely to be abstinent from binge eating and purging and had less eating disorder-related cognitive psychopathology and lower levels of depression at post-treatment. Individuals who abstained from binge eating and purging behaviors improve their cognitive eating disorder psychopathology and depression symptoms by the end of the treatment, appear to be actively learning how to employ these adaptive techniques to regulate their emotions in early weeks of treatment. So basically all those who showed great signs, like they kind of like the whole point of the study was to see who would have like kind of the best outcome after CBT, because some people take to it better than others, and they found that those who really took to it and who really implemented it during their 6 to 8 weeks actually made a lot of progress within their eating disorder. Although individuals improved in the emotional awareness, goal-directed behaviors, and impulsivity changes in these characteristics did not predict treatment outcome as seen by medium-sized effects. That shows that more than other components of emotion regulations, the perception that one can skillfully and successfully respond to emotions may be particularly relevant to a good eating disorder treatment outcomes. So basically, in conclusion, how do I explain this? So what they found was that, yes, it did work, but a lot of it, especially when they were doing the depression inventory and whatnot, they found that it didn't really line up to their initial idea that, yes, they were stopping these behaviors, but they also still had the same thought or negative thought process that they had before. So kind of that just because the behavior stopped doesn't mean that their thoughts and emotions stopped, as I mentioned before. Like, they were, as I said, more emotionally aware, but at the same time, it was more so that the behavior itself, like, as we learned in class, like, you can kind of condition yourself to not do certain behaviors or act a certain way, but that doesn't mean your initial thought process is going to stay different. So I kind of found that interesting, because not only are you changing your physicality, but your brain is still in a negative state at times. But other than that, that was my presentation. I thank you all for listening. And yeah. Oh, and those are my references. I only use that. So yeah. Thank you.